For nearly 3 centuries, the galaxy believed it had already witnessed humanity's end. Not extinction, no, nothing so dramatic. The great civilizations of the spiral arm had long since learned that extermination was inefficient, politically distasteful, and often unnecessary. Humanity's fate, as recorded in council archives and military academies, was far simpler. They retreated. At first, the withdrawal had been subtle. A mining outpost here, quietly abandoned, a trade corridor there, no longer patrolled. Human embassies closed their doors with polite formality, citing internal consolidation and strategic realignment. No alarms, no desperate pleas, no last stands. The galaxy barely noticed. Why would it? Humanity had arrived late to the interstellar stage, their jump drives crude, their fleets inelegant compared to the biosculpted vessels of the Viex Clades or the radiant lattice ships of the Illyrian Concorde. They were loud, angular, inefficient, remarkable only for how quickly they multiplied. And then, just as quickly, they began to vanish. To the elder species, this confirmed what they had always suspected. Humans were adaptive, yes, but adaptation without wisdom led to overreach. They had expanded too fast, challenged borders they didn't fully understand, and collided with powers far older and more patient. The Galactic Conclave convened only once to discuss it. The primates are folding, Ambassador Threxel of the Korth Dominion had declared, his chitinous mandibles clicking with faint amusement. A predictable outcome. No dissent followed. Humanity's retreat continued for decades. Entire sectors once marked by human habitation were quietly ceded. The banner of the Terran Compact, an unadorned field of deep blue crossed by a single silver arc, was lowered from starports and replaced by alien sigils. There were no final battles, no burning capitals. Just absence. What the galaxy did not understand, what it never truly considered, was that humanity had not retreated in panic. They had withdrawn with intent. Commander Elena Serrano stood on the observation deck of Watchpost Helios, gazing out at the slow ballet of stars beyond the reinforced viewport. The station hung at the very edge of known space, far beyond the borders humanity officially claimed to have abandoned. To the Conclave, this region was empty, unclaimed, irrelevant. To humanity, it was sacred. Telemetry confirms another Illyrian survey fleet entering the Perseus Drift, said Lieutenant Harrow from behind her. His voice was calm, professional, betraying none of the tension Serrano felt tightening in her chest. Third one this decade. Serrano nodded slowly. They're getting bolder. They think we're gone, Harrow replied, or broken. Neither, Serrano said quietly. Watchpost Helios was invisible to conventional sensors, its mass folded through layers of gravitational masking and quantum shadowing that human engineers had perfected in secrecy. It was one of hundreds, silent eyes watching the galaxy encroach, inch by inch, into what it believed was empty space. Serrano had been a cadet when the withdrawal began. She remembered the protests on inner worlds, the fury of civilian councils, the admirals who resigned rather than comply. Humanity had possessed the strength to fight then, of that she had no doubt. But strength without preparation only fed the grinder. So they pulled back, they consolidated, they learned. They let the galaxy believe its own story. Any change in their scan patterns? Serrano asked. No, Harrow said. Standard exploratory sweep. They're cataloging stars we stripped centuries ago. Serrano allowed herself the smallest smile. Entire systems had been harvested and rebuilt beyond the rim, their matter repurposed into shipyards, habitats, and things the galaxy had never imagined. The human frontier worlds had not been lost. They had been moved. Keep monitoring, she said. And log everything. The clock is still ticking. For what? Harrow asked, though he already knew the answer. For them to make the same mistake they always do, Serrano said. They mistake silence for surrender. In the heart of the galaxy, the conclave rotunda shimmered with artificial starlight. Delegates from dozens of civilizations hovered, slithered, or stood within their designated gravitic fields, the air alive with pheromones, bioluminescent pulses, and whispered translations. Supreme Arbiter Kael'vor addressed the assembly, his voice amplified through psionic resonance. Item 47, he intoned, territorial redistribution of former human sectors. A ripple of mild interest passed through the chamber. Humanity was no longer a threat. They were a resource, vacated space ripe for exploitation. The Korth Dominion requests exclusive mining rights to the Solace Reach, Kael'vor continued. Unopposed came several replies. The Viex Clade's petition for colonization authority over the Ashen Spiral. Granted. One by one, humanity's former domains were carved apart with bureaucratic efficiency. No one asked whether the humans objected. No one considered whether they were watching. Why would they? Humanity had not contested a single claim in over 100 years. To the galaxy, that silence was proof. Deep beyond the rim, far from conclave sensors, something ancient and vast stirred. In a starless volume of space, where reality itself bent under engineered strain, the human fleet lay dormant, layer upon layer of warships, habitats, and weapon platforms folded into dimensional anchors. They were not drifting. They were waiting. Admiral Jonah Reyes floated in the command sphere of the HSS Vigilant, hands clasped behind his back as tactical projections shimmered around him. He was old by human standards, his hair silvered, his face lined by decades of command. "They've taken another sector," said his aide. Reyes nodded, as expected. "Some of the younger captains are restless," the aide continued. "They think we should have struck back centuries ago." Reyes turned his eyes hard, and accomplished what? A glorious defeat, a footnote. He gestured, and the projection shifted, revealing the true scope of humanity's preparations. Shipyards spanning light years, fleets numbered not in dozens, but in tens of thousands. Technologies that bent causality, that weaponized patience itself. "We did not retreat because we were weak," Reyes said softly. "We retreated because we were patient." The aide hesitated. How much longer? Reyes stared at the galaxy's edge, at the lights of civilizations that believed themselves unchallenged. "Until they forget how to fear us," he said. A warning klaxon sounded, soft, controlled. Reyes smiled for the first time in years. "They're almost there." Far away in the halls of the Galactic Conclave, no one noticed the faint anomaly blooming beyond the rim, a statistical whisper, easily dismissed as background noise. No one noticed the stars beginning to rearrange. And no one yet realized that humanity's retreat had never been an ending. It had been the calm before something vast, deliberate, and unstoppable. The first human world to fall was Erythra Prime. It had once been a jewel of the outer colonies, a temperate ocean world with floating cities and orbital rings that shimmered like halos in its dawn light. Humanity had evacuated it 212 years earlier, leaving behind nothing but automated climate stabilizers and a single, silent monument in orbit, a ring of alloy etched with names. To the galaxy, it was a prize waiting to be claimed. The Illyrian Concorde arrived in ceremonial force. Their ships were radiant constructs of light and crystal, grown rather than built, their hulls refracting starlight into dazzling spectra. This was not an invasion, not officially. It was a reclamation, a peaceful assertion of stewardship over an abandoned system. Their archivists recorded no resistance. They did not expect any. When Illyrian terraformers descended into the upper atmosphere, their sensors detected something odd, faint gravitational inconsistencies beneath the oceans, deep below the crust. Ancient machinery, dormant but intact. They logged it as debris. Then the oceans moved. Across the planet, tectonic plates shifted in unison, not violently, but deliberately. Vast sections of seabed folded inward, revealing structures kilometers wide, vaults of black alloy that drank in light. The Illyrian fleet halted, confusion rippling through their command lattice. "What is activating?" their chorus mind demanded. No answer came. Because the systems awakening beneath Erythra Prime were not weapons. They were locks. Far beyond the system, Watchpost Helios flared with sudden activity. Commander Serrano stared at the incoming data stream, her breath catching. "They've triggered a planetary seal," Harrow said, disbelief in his voice. "That's impossible. Those systems were designed never to activate unless the planet was occupied by a non-human civilization," Serrano finished quietly. The human engineers of the withdrawal had been meticulous. Every world left behind carried layers of contingencies, fail-safes that would never harm civilians, never destabilize ecosystems. Humanity had not believed in scorched earth. But they had believed in consequences. "Status?" Serrano asked. "Erythra Prime has initiated isolation protocols," Harrow replied. "Gravity wells are hardening. Subspace interference is rising exponentially." On Erythra Prime, the Illyrian terraformers screamed as their ships were gently, but inexorably pushed out of orbit. Not destroyed, not damaged. Excluded. The system itself rejected them. Within hours, Erythra Prime vanished from navigational charts, wrapped in a localized distortion that rendered it unreachable by non-human drives. The Illyrian Concord filed a formal protest with the Galactic Conclave. It was the first time humanity's absence had answered back. The Conclave's response was swift and dismissive. "These are automated relics," Supreme Arbiter Kael'vor declared, "residual defenses of a departed species, nothing more." Ambassador Threxil flexed his mandibles. The humans lacked the numbers to enforce such claims. Their technology stagnated centuries ago. "Agreed," intoned the chorus mind of the Illyrians, though unease flickered through its harmonics. Still, the precision was troubling. The conclave voted to escalate reclamation efforts. If humanity had left behind toys, the galaxy would simply learn how to dismantle them. The next incident occurred along the Ashen Spiral. The Viex Clades, masters of adaptive warfare, deployed a full biofleet to secure the region's star systems. Their living ships flowed like predatory shoals, weapons grown from hardened bone and energized plasma sacs. They encountered nothing. No human patrols, no signals. Only empty space. Until their fleet crossed an invisible boundary. Without warning, the Viex ships began to desynchronize. Navigation nodes lost consensus, their shared biological intelligence fragmenting as if cut by a scalpel. Ships drifted apart, no longer able to agree on vectors, targets, or even threats. Panic rippled through the clade. "What is happening?" hissed the prime node. A human voice answered. Not broadcast, not transmitted. It resonated directly within their neural network, translated flawlessly into Viex cognition. "You have crossed a line." The Viex recoiled, their ships spasming as the connection severed. Moments later, space itself seemed to fold, not violently, precisely. The entire biofleet was displaced, relocated tens of light years away, intact but utterly disoriented. No weapon fire. No pursuit. Just a message embedded in their shared memory, burned into instinct. Do not advance further. For the first time in generations, fear crept into the conclave. What is the source of these interventions? Kael'vor demanded. No confirmed human fleet movements, replied the intelligence synths. No detectable mass transits, no conventional signatures. Ambassador Threxil slammed a claw against his dais. Ghosts and relics, that is all. The humans cannot enforce borders they abandoned. Then why are they enforcing them now? Asked a minor delegate. Silence followed. Because no one had an answer that fit the galaxy's comfortable assumptions. Deep beyond the rim, Admiral Reyes watched the reports scroll past. They're probing, said his tactical officer, testing boundaries, pushing until something breaks. And what have we lost? Reyes asked. Nothing, the officer replied. Not a single casualty, not a single shot fired. Reyes nodded. Good. Somewhere in the fleet, younger commanders bristled at the restraint. Humanity possessed weapons now that could erase star systems, rewrite physics, end wars before they began. But that had never been the point. Continue passive enforcement, Reyes ordered. Let them feel the walls without seeing the fortress. The galaxy responded, as it always did when confused. With arrogance. A coalition fleet, assembled from Korth, Illyrian and Viex assets, was authorized to breach the Perseus Drift, the region bordering humanity's last officially known territory. This will end the myth, Ambassador Threxil proclaimed. We will expose their illusions. The fleet advanced in overwhelming force, hundreds of warships sweeping forward in tight formation. They crossed the boundary, and space went silent. Every sensor went dark, not destroyed, not jammed, but blinded by an absence of reference points. Stars vanished. Subspace collapsed into a flat, unresponsive void. The coalition fleet drifted, helpless. Then the human ships appeared. Not emerging from hyperspace, not decloaking. They were simply there, thousands of them, arranged in perfect geometric formations that stretched beyond visual range. Their hulls were dark, matte, absorbing light, their silhouettes brutal and unmistakably human. Angular, purpose-built. Unmoving. A single transmission pulsed across every coalition channel. This region is under human protection, the voice said. Calm, measured, unmistakably human. You have trespassed. Ambassador Threxil demanded weapons free. None of the coalition ships responded. Their weapons systems were locked, not overridden, not disabled, but politely refused, as if the universe itself had declined the request. The human fleet did not fire. Instead, they withdrew. Space returned to normal, sensors rebooted, weapons unlocked. The coalition fleet found itself alone and terrified. The conclave erupted into chaos. They are not gone, the Illyrians sang, their chorus mind fractured by fear. They never left. How long, demanded Kael'vor, how long have they been capable of this? Intelligence projections recalculated, timelines shifted, old assumptions collapsed. Centuries human silence reframed, not as weakness, but as preparation. Ambassador Threxil spoke softly now. We mistook patience for surrender. In the depths of human-controlled space, Admiral Reyes received a final report. Their fleets are pulling back, his aide said. They're consolidating, fortifying. Reyes exhaled slowly. Then we are out of time, he said. Beyond the rim, engines began to warm, quietly, deliberately, across a civilization that had waited centuries to be underestimated. And at the center of it all, a single directive propagated through human command. Phase 1 complete. The galaxy had noticed them again. But it was already too late to pretend nothing had changed. The galaxy did not sleep after the Perseus incident. It watched. Every major civilization rerouted resources toward intelligence, surveillance, and military readiness. Long-dormant war councils convened. Ancient treaties were dusted off and reinterpreted. Defensive arrays that had not been powered in millennia hummed back to life. Because the humans were no longer a rumor. They were a presence. And worse, they were an unknown. The first true fracture came from within the galactic conclave itself. Supreme Arbiter Kael'vor stood at the center of the rotunda, his normally resonant voice strained as the chamber's noise bled into chaos. "We require restraint," he declared. "Panic will only." "Restraint," Ambassador Threxil interrupted, mandibles flaring. "They have already violated conclave authority. They enforce borders we did not recognize." "They enforce borders we assumed were abandoned," countered the Illyrian chorus mind, its harmonics trembling. "We trespassed," they responded. "That is irrelevant," Threxil snapped. "If they possess such power, they must be brought to heel before they decide to expand again." The word "again" echoed ominously. Kael'vor raised a claw. "You propose war with a civilization that has surpassed our detection for centuries." Silence followed. No one liked the answer forming in their minds. But fear, once ignited, rarely allowed patience. The Korth Dominion moved first. Not openly, not with fleets. They launched the Severance. A weapon older than most star nations, a star killer not designed to destroy, but to unravel. The Severance could collapse a star's fusion balance just enough to induce a slow, cascading failure. The system would die over decades, its worlds rendered uninhabitable without ever revealing the attacker. It was subtle. It was cruel. And it was aimed at a system the Conclave still listed as formerly human, unoccupied. The star never destabilized. Instead, the Severance vanished. Not intercepted, not destroyed. Removed. In the Korth Command Nexus, alarms flared as the weapon's telemetry stream ended mid-pulse. No explosion, no feedback. Just absence. Then a return signal appeared, origin unknown. A single data packet unfolded across Korth systems, translating itself seamlessly into their language. "We noticed." Admiral Reyes watched the incident replay in silence. "Did we reveal too much?" his tactical officer asked. Reyes shook his head. "No, we revealed the minimum." Around them, the human fleet stirred, not moving, not advancing, but aligning. Vast formations shifted by microscopic degrees, optimizing vectors, synchronizing across distances that would have broken lesser civilizations' command structures. Humanity was not mobilizing for conquest. It was preparing for inevitability. The Conclave's fear metastasized into desperation. If the humans could nullify superweapons, if they could impose borders without fleets, then conventional warfare was meaningless. The galaxy's advantage, numbers, age, accumulated power, meant nothing against an opponent that had rewritten the rules in silence. So they chose a different battlefield. Narrative. Across trade networks and cultural exchanges, the Conclave began spreading a story. Humanity, they claimed, had not retreated out of wisdom, but cowardice. Their recent actions were framed as territorial bullying, a dangerous resurgence of an unstable species that had once expanded recklessly. Minor civilizations were warned. Side with the humans and you will be next. It almost worked. Until the refugees arrived. They came from the outer spiral, small nomadic species displaced by Korth expansion and Viex assimilation. Ships battered, populations starving, their pleas ignored by conclave authorities. Human space took them in. No broadcasts announced it, no grand gestures. Human logistics ships appeared at the edges of refugee flotillas, offering food, repair, medical aid. Worlds thought abandoned revealed hidden habitats, opening their shields without hesitation. And the humans asked for nothing in return. Ambassadorial channels flooded with reports. They didn't enslave us. They didn't conscript us. They didn't even lecture us. They simply helped. The narrative cracked. The breaking point came at the world of Carthage. Carthage was not human, it never had been. It was a neutral trade hub, a city world governed by ancient accords, protected by the Conclave's authority. When Carthage announced a formal trade and research compact with humanity, the Conclave issued an ultimatum. Rescind the agreement. Carthage refused. The Conclave authorized a demonstration strike. Not annihilation, just enough destruction to remind everyone who enforced order. The fleet arrived in force, weapons charged, confident in centuries of precedent. They did not see the human ships until they were already between the fleet and the planet. Hundreds of them, sleek, angular, bearing the quiet menace of restraint long exhausted. "This is Conclave-sanctioned action," broadcast the Korth commander. "Withdraw." A human admiral answered. "You are threatening a civilian world," she said. "Stand down. You have no authority here." The human fleet did not argue. Space twisted. The Conclave fleet found itself abruptly disarmed, weapon mounts disassembled at the molecular level, falling away in slow, glittering clouds. Engines stalled, their reaction masses safely vented. The human ships held position. No shots fired. Carthage watched from orbit as its would-be executioners floated helplessly. Across the galaxy, the message was unmistakable. Humanity would not conquer, but it would not allow cruelty to hide behind tradition. Panic tore through the Conclave. "They can neutralize fleets without violence," Kael'vor whispered. "They can invalidate our authority without replacing it." Ambassador Threxil's mandibles trembled. "Then what are they?" The answer came not from the Conclave, but from humanity itself. A broadcast rippled across every known channel, bypassing encryption, translated perfectly into every language. Admiral Jonah Reyes appeared, unadorned uniform, no symbols of dominance. "We withdrew because we understood something you did not," he said. "Power is not proven by how loudly you use it." Images followed, records of human history beyond the stars, the early wars, the near-extinctions, the cost of arrogance. "We learned restraint the hard way," Reyes continued. "We stepped back so we wouldn't repeat our worst mistakes on a galactic scale." The broadcast ended with a simple declaration. "We are returning, not to rule, but to ensure no one else makes the galaxy bleed for pride." The Conclave's authority collapsed in real time. Member worlds withdrew recognition, defense pacts dissolved, minor civilizations openly sought human protection. The galaxy's old giants, suddenly aware of their own fragility, scrambled to respond. Some prepared for war, others prepared to beg. In the depths beyond the rim, human fleets finally began to move, not as scattered guardians, but as a unified force. Admiral Reyes watched the stars shift as jump corridors aligned. Phase 2 complete, his aide said. Reyes closed his eyes for a moment. The hard part begins now, he replied. Across the galaxy, the old order cracked. And something new, measured, deliberate, and terrifyingly capable, stepped fully into the light. The galaxy had known wars before. It had known extinction events, crusades, purges, and cycles of domination so old they had become myth. Civilizations rose, burned, and were forgotten while the stars remained indifferent. What the galaxy had never known was this: a power that could end it all, and chose not to. The final confrontation did not begin with a battle. It began with a summons. Every remaining member of the Galactic Conclave, those who had not fled, fractured, or openly defected, received the same message, delivered simultaneously across all channels, languages, and sensory modalities. You are invited to witness the consequences of your choices. Coordinates followed. They pointed not to a human world, but to the heart of the conclave itself. Carthage became the axis of history. Once a neutral trade hub, it was now the safest place in the galaxy, not because it bristled with defenses, but because human fleets surrounded it in layered formations that bent space itself into a shield. Thousands of vessels held station, not in aggressive posture, but in absolute control. Delegations arrived cautiously. Some came in warships, bristling with weapons they knew were useless. Others came in ceremonial craft, desperate to project dignity they no longer felt. Supreme Arbiter Kael'vor arrived last. He looked small as he entered the central chamber, no longer the unquestioned voice of galactic order, but a relic clinging to relevance. Admiral Jonah Reyes stood waiting. No throne, no raised platform. Just a man who carried the weight of centuries in his eyes. You have gathered, Reyes said, his voice steady, because the galaxy stands at a crossroads. Holographic projections bloomed around them, star maps, timelines, casualty estimates. You believed humanity retreated because we were Alpha. Aid, Reyes continued. In truth, we retreated because we knew what unchecked power does. Images followed, worlds shattered by conclave wars, species erased under legal technicalities, demonstration strikes that became exterminations. We watched, Reyes said. We catalogued, we prepared. Ambassador Threxel spoke, his voice bitter, prepared to replace us. Reyes met his gaze, prepared to stop you. The revelation came next. Human engineers activated a construct that surrounded Carthage, a lattice of light unfolding across space like a living equation. It was not a weapon. It was a mirror. The delegates felt it immediately. Every war simulation, every strategic projection, every contingency plan they had ever modeled began running, accurately, against human capability. Their systems did not show defeat. They showed impossibility. No victory conditions existed. No escalation paths led anywhere but mutual annihilation and humanity's survival beyond it. You cannot defeat us, Reyes said quietly, but that is not a threat, it is a statement of fact. Kael'vor's voice trembled. Then why not rule, why not end us now? Reyes exhaled. Because we remember being you. Outside Carthage, the human fleets shifted. For the first time, weapons came fully online, not firing, but visible. The galaxy finally saw the scale of what humanity had built in silence. star harvesting arrays capable of collapsing suns into energy reservoirs, vessels that bent causality, arriving before they were detected, defensive fields that could shelter entire systems. The message was unmistakable. This is what restraint looks like. The terms humanity offered were devastating in their simplicity. The galactic conclave would dissolve. No empire would hold unilateral authority again. Borders would be enforced not by dominance, but by mutual consent, and violations would be answered by human intervention. No annexations, no demonstration strikes, no extermination clauses hidden in legal language. Those who resisted would not be conquered. They would be isolated, cut off from trade, travel, and influence, left to face the consequences of their own aggression alone. This is not peace through fear, Reyes said. It is peace through memory. Some delegates raged. Some wept. Some quietly agreed. Ambassador Threxil lowered his head. We thought you weak because you left. Reyes nodded. We left so we wouldn't become monsters. Kael'vor signed the Dissolution Charter with shaking claws. The Galactic Conclave ended not with a battle, but with an admission. They had been wrong. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Trade routes stabilized. Border conflicts vanished, not because fear loomed, but because escalation no longer paid. Minor civilizations flourished under protection that did not demand loyalty, only decency. Humanity did not occupy worlds. They watched. They intervened only when lines were crossed. And when they did, it was swift, precise, and final. Commander Elena Serrano stood once more at Watchpost Helios, now no longer hidden. Human ships passed openly, their presence a quiet promise rather than a threat. Lieutenant Harrow joined her. Hard to believe, he said. After everything, it ended without a war. Serrano smiled faintly. It didn't end, it matured. Far away, Admiral Reyes prepared to retire. His final log entry was simple. We waited centuries to return, not to be feared, but to be necessary. The galaxy remembered the age before humanity returned as a time of noise, of constant conflict and fragile empires. The age after was quieter, not because humanity ruled the stars, but because, at last, someone strong enough to dominate everything had chosen instead to guard it. And that, more than any fleet or weapon, changed the course of history forever.